In this section, we'll take a detailed look at the room interface. In video 1, we'll be looking at the main interface much like we did for the previous videos thus far. This will introduce us to some of the most basic options in the room interface that are available to us. In video 2, we'll focus on room layers, an incredibly useful feature new to GameMaker Studio 2 that allows us a great deal of control in terms of display and organization. Finally, in video 3, we'll look at how to actually add the assets we make to our room so that we can actually build levels, interfaces, and more. After all this, we'll have the knowledge to create rooms, use room layers, and add assets to these rooms in order to create our very own games. So let's get started. We'll be learning about rooms, the resource that we use to set out levels, menus, and much more. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the main interface of a room and its features. We'll start with the room editor view options, then look at layers, and finally the room properties. To get to the room editor, all we need to do is either open an existing room within our project, or if a room doesn't exist, create a new one. The first thing to notice when we open the room editor is that it always opens in a new tab and not in the workspace as other resources do. We have the option to drag the tab out into a new window, but rooms do not show in the workspace. As we can see, an empty room starts with a large grey area with a grid. This is the area in which we place objects and set up levels or menus. A room can be considered like a level or a new screen within the game. It's common to see one or more rooms used for a main menu, with preceding rooms acting as levels for gameplay to occur. On the left side we have the Room Editor tab, which gives us access to room information and settings. On the right of the room view region we have some options regarding the view. We'll start with those as they're the simplest options available to us. The first option is a submenu. It gives us access to the grid settings including color, transparency, cell size, and if objects should snap to the grid when being placed. We can also toggle snapping by pressing Ctrl+G. The grid is an extremely useful tool as it makes placing assets precisely a much easier task. Next up we have the room properties. Below the layer properties, which we'll look at in the next video, we can find the rooms properties. Here we can access and edit the room's properties such as its size in pixels, creation code, and the order of instance creation. We also have a persistent option. Selecting this will make the room persist through room changes. Basically, this means the room state will be saved and restored when we change rooms and then return back to this room. The room properties region also provides us with access to views and cameras which allow us to set up a camera which can, for example, be made to follow the player around the level. Cameras and views in GameMaker Studio 2 can be a little bit complicated, so for now we'll move on and then return back to this in part 2 of the course when we begin actually making our own games. Beneath the viewports and cameras section we can also find settings regarding the physics world. Here we can set the basic parameters for the physics world. These options are only if we intend to use the Box2D physics engine for our game. The first option is for enabling physics within the room. This basically tells GameMaker to create a physics world for us. Below this we have gravity for both the X and Y axis. The larger the number, the stronger the gravity force. It's important to keep in mind that in GameMaker the Y value gets higher as we move down in 2D space, so having Y gravity as positive means that it's a downwards force. If it was a negative value, it would be an upwards force. For the x-axis, it's as it is in most programs. Going right increases the x value, and going left decreases it. Pixels to meters is the ratio of pixels to meters for the simulation. It's rarely necessary to change this value from its default. In this video, we took a look at the room interface and its properties. In the next video, we'll complete this process as we go over room layers.